Raising teenagers is hard. Understatement of the century. This is Mentor Select. Mentor Select. Parenting teens to be successful adults. Mentor Select serves parents who are raising teens. Every week, Derek interviews leading experts that work with teens, educators, counselors, mentors, and authors to give you practical tips, strategies, and resources that you can incorporate immediately to better connect and understand your teen. All while parenting them to be successful adults, focusing on social and emotional development, something that's left out of the classroom, but not in ours. Be sure to subscribe, share, and rate. This is Mentor Select, and this is your host, Derek Phillips.
Welcome to episode 83 of the Mentor Select podcast. I am thrilled you joined us this week for another phenomenal value-packed interview. Parents, today you are in for a real treat. I have the founder of Hopeful Arms Foundation, Demira Devoil. How are you, Demira?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Great.
It's all rainy and wet here in Dallas today, so I'm trying to stay warm.
Yes, it is. I just came from outside a little while ago, and it's getting kind of cool again. Earlier, it was not as cool, but now it's dropping a little. So, yeah.
Yeah. Are you a Dallas native?
No, I'm actually from Louisiana. I'm from Bastrop, Louisiana, which is a small town by Monroe, Louisiana.
Ah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Monroe, I have some friends from there. Good
From
people.
Monroe?
Yeah.
I know, nothing but like agriculture. Yeah, that's Bastrop and Monroe.
Awesome. So, Demira, I know that you're the founder of Hopeful Arms Foundation, and you're doing a lot of great things through that foundation. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, Hopeful Arms Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit that I founded in 2017. I founded the organization because I've always been one, and I've always been passionate about helping people. A little bit about my background is that I was homeless at one point, and I speak a lot in shelters, and I always like to tell them that at the time that I became homeless, I was really prideful. And so I'm a single parent, being homeless, but I knew that just was not where I was supposed to be in life. And so I started taking the steps to gather my life through budgeting, finance, through just doing the real work to get myself back on track. And so when I did get myself back on track, it was just in my heart and in my passion to do those things for others. So Hopeful Arms Foundation, we are a nonprofit that we focus on the homeless population as well as the single parent population. The majority of single parents or the statistic on single parents who are in poverty is just alarming. And so I wanted to help change the narrative of that statistic. So we offer programs such as Rebirth Single Parent Life, which is a 3-month curriculum based as well as real world based where I mentor them to just help them get back on track financially. We do spiritually, we do parenting classes as well, because a lot of times when single parents are working and they're working a lot of jobs and they're not able to give the full attention to their children. So we help them with that as well. It's kind of a nutshell of what Hopeful Arms is.
Yeah, you all are doing some big things, very important work. And it sounds like you all take a holistic approach to serving the homeless and also single parents.
Yes, it is a holistic approach because everything worked together. Usually at the beginning of the year, we do vision building seminars. And so in our vision building seminars, we promote the parents or whomever, you can be singles as well, that will come out. But even with the parents, we promote them also bringing their children. So their children or their teenagers, I love to have the teenagers in the seminars and the vision building courses and seminars because they're able to sit down and see it written out. There's a big difference from saying, hey, I have a goal, than actually putting action items to that goal to get it done.
Right.
I'm a big proponent of just not just setting goals, but setting smart goals.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll definitely dive deeper into the SMART goals momentarily.
Okay.
But what I want to brush over is I really find it inspiring that you say you're a single mom and homeless yourself, and now you're essentially paying it forward where you're helping others in that situation. What was it that was that shift for you to determine, okay, it's more that I have to offer than this. It's more to life. I'm going to make a change. What helped you make that switch?
Well, I think for me, I was a first generation college student.
Okay.
And so I've always had that drive to want more than what my hometown had to offer. And so then I went to Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
All right.
So I know HBCU. And so I majored in computer science because I've always been a strategical thinker. But I wanted to do something that, honestly, that I really like to do. And so I went to college. I graduated with my bachelor's degree. I got pregnant with my daughter, and I wasn't in a relationship with her father. And so I started seeing those cycles from my mom and people that were around me, and it just started spiraling. And so that spiraled into I'm working on multi-million-dollar projects in Louisiana, but I didn't know how to budget my money. I didn't know how, because no one taught me financial literacy growing up.
Right.
My mom only made it to middle school, and my dad, he had a little college experience, but he only went to college, he played basketball. So, he wasn't the best. They weren't the best.
Academics wasn't the focus.
Right. Like they weren't the best in financially preparing me for everything. So it was a moment where I was like, great, you're a college graduate. You have this career where you're working and you're making this type of money, but you don't know how to manage the money. And that ultimately led me to where I ended up being without a place to stay. I remember the day that I let my apartment go because I was like, I'm just falling deeper and deeper, in debt with it. So I let it go. But I also remember sitting in the car with my daughter, just thinking like, this is not what you came to do. Like there was a turning point. And I've had a lot of obstacles over my life, but I wholeheartedly believe in grit and just perseverance and getting it done.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's kind of where the hard work started to take place. I actually had to open my mouth and let people know that I didn't have a place to stay.
Yeah.
And then to say, hey, I remember a good friend of mine who was a lawyer at the time. He let me come and work for him because what ended up happening was I got laid off. And so when I got laid off, instead of me budgeting, like I said, the little money that I did have, I didn't. I said was living like I was working like a full-time job.
Like that check was coming.
Right. Like the check was coming and it was not at all. Yeah. And so that's what ultimately led me down that path. And like I said, I had to sit down and take that hard look at myself in the mirror. From the moment that I knew that I was pregnant with my daughter, I said that I would not live the type of life that I lived growing up. And so I saw myself there. Yeah.
I think that's a good point to dive in terms of, so say parents that's out there listening now, perhaps they didn't go to college, but their teenagers have aspirations of going to college. What can some things they can start doing now to prepare them to make that transition as smoothly as possible?
Well, I think there's some things that they can do now to start preparing themselves. Okay, so first I would say talk to your children. Because even with me going to college, I got my bachelor's, I have a master's in business administration, and now I'm about to finish up my doctorate. I have a 13-year-old. So even if you took away all of that, right, my main focus is at the end of the day, I'm still a mom. And so whatever it is that she's interested in, I have to be interested in as well. So from a parent to a parent speaking right now, if you have never had any experience in college or going to college or don't know anyone that has went to college, I would say talk to your children, because 9 times out of 10, they probably know a little bit more about it than you think that they know. I know a lot of schools now are doing a lot of prep work to help children going into school. And then especially if they are in a area that is either low income or poverty stricken, sometimes they may have the mentality that, hey, I just can't afford school for my child. You can afford school for your child. Talk to your child's counselor. I'm a big proponent of going to the school. Like, I still go for my 13-year-old because at the end of the day, you want to be able to change the narrative for your child, because it's not really about you. It's about the generations to follow you. If your children are interested in going to school, or even if it's just a technical, just whatever, a technical college, I just always say change the narrative by being involved.
Okay. Yeah, that's the vital first step. It all begins getting involved. Now, going back to the importance of financial literacy and you learning it later in life, and I can relate learning it later in life. How can parents start now teaching financial literacy?
Parents can start now by one of the easiest ways I think that you can start is by sharing the bills with them. And when I say sharing, I mean like showing them, hey, this is what the light bill is, and this is what we've budgeted out for the bill. Just start those. And like I say, the internet is so full of financial literacy documents about budgeting, about credit cards. For me, one of the things that I know that sent me in the other direction was that I had no knowledge about credit cards. So when I got to college, they were sending me all of these pre-approvals for credit cards. And I graduated when I was 17. So just think about it, a 17 and 18-year-old that are getting these pre-approvals in the mail. You're like, I have a free 5,000, but it's not really free. So I think starting with educating them on the things that they probably will come into contact first, which would be credit cards, start having credit talks with them. Even if your credit is not the best, you are the best example. I would tell any parent, your life is the best example for your child. Even if your credit is not the best, still say, hey, this is what mom and dad's credit is. Don't do this, So just start because credit is something that's long-term. So even with my 13-year-old, we talk about credit. This is what mom's credit scores are. This is how I got this. This is what will make my credit scores change. Just have those conversations. And then even budgeting. Well, a lot of families that I've come into contact with, they budget, but there are many that don't budget. I would say start with the talks about budgeting, because what will happen is, even if you're not a budgeter, or even if you haven't been paying attention to credit, you're going to start paying attention to those things.
Right.
When you start having that conversation with your child, it's going to start being a little bit more important to you when you start trying to educate your child, because every parent wants to look great in front of their child.
Yeah. Indeed. So, Demira, it sounds like you're saying that a big part of parents setting an example for their teens is being transparent.
Right. I wholeheartedly believe in being transparent, because the thing about it is, a lot of times we as parents, we try to shelter our kids from a lot of things, but in this day and age, it's not like I was born in 1982, okay? So
back in the day, I'm 83.
Back in the day. So it is so not like that anymore. And even if you try to shelter your children from things, they're going to come into contact with it somehow. To me, my outlook on that is, how are they going to receive what it is that they come into contact with? Because if you go ahead and talk to them about it, like I said, we're talking about, budgeting and finances, and just even wanting to go to school, and if they have it, whatever their aspirations or their goals are, even just talking to them about it now will help them out in the long run. Of whenever they come into contact with it. That way they can say, hey, whenever they see something, regardless of what it is, they say, oh, I remember my mom talked to me about that, or my dad talked to me about that.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point. You rather, as a parent, will want to be the one exposing them to it in a controlled setting and giving them the best information versus them stumbling upon it on someone else. We have no idea what they're teaching them, but they're going to be exposed to it regardless. So definitely goes back to controlling the narrative, what you're saying. So what are you getting your doctorate degree in?
I'll get my doctorate degree in organizational leadership with an emphasis on educational leadership.
Awesome.
So I wanted to take a different turn from technology. My bachelor's is computer science, and then my master's, like I said, I have an MBA, but it's a technology management focus. But I really wanted to get into helping to change the narrative in organizations as well.
Okay.
And that's what kind of led me down that road. Now, granted, I'm going to be really honest with you. I never wanted to get a doctorate degree. I'm so serious. I did it. That was not on my to-do list. But through ways and I mean, if I can be really honest with you, I believe and I know that God kind of guided me that way. So that's where we are.
All right. Well, looking forward to calling you Dr. Devoil.
Me too, because I'm like, Lord, this has been
you got to earn it. Well, yeah, that's a lot of schooling. Lifelong learner. Speaking of schooling, and you actually, like you say, you majored in undergrad in computer science.
Mm-hmm.
That's certainly the technology field is a field that we've seen a shortage as far as women, and especially African American women, minorities pursuing that career field. What are some things that parents can do, especially if they have teen girls, to get them excited about the sciences? And
well, I think that some of the things that they can do, especially with girls, now they have so many different, honestly, like nonprofits and organizations that are directed towards girls. Like I know one of them is, I think it's Girls Code, or like there are so many. I would say just do a simple Google search for STEM, STEM, for STEM activities or STEM organizations within your city or in your town, to find those places, because there are so many coming out. And I do think that they're needed. As a African-American woman who is in technology, I don't see a lot of us there.
Right.
And we are very underrepresented. And there are, in certain fields, there are shortages. Depending on what you go into in technology, there are shortages. And so also another thing that I wanted to talk about with that, even with parents who have girls, and even parents who have boys who are, African American, there are scholarships. There are engineering scholarships. There are STEM scholarships. And how I know this, my 13-year-old is actually in a program called Girls Inc. And I hope I can say their name, but it's called Girls Inc. But she's working on scholarships now at the age of 13.
Wow. Never too early.
And one of the scholarships she's working on, I know, is an engineering scholarship. So I wholeheartely encourage parents to literally just do your work, do your research. It takes 10 minutes to just Google a couple of words, and all types of things will pop up to help you introduce your child. I'm big on exposing my child to different things. So
Google is our friend.
Google is our friend. I learned that when I worked at a job, and they were like, I asked the manager something one day, and they were like, "Did you Google it?" And I was like, "What?"
Right.
And so, it's just
Now you only have to type. You can just say Alexa.
Right.
Gotta love it. Also, going back to what you mentioned as far as Hopeful Arms does vision seminars. Can you tell us more about that and just the importance of vision boards and how that can help teenagers really prepare them for success?
I feel that people talk about goals all the time. I mean, one of the most common things that we have at the beginning of the new year is, people, they're like, okay, I have this goal, I have that goal, I have that goal. Right. The first thing that I ask them is did you write the goal down? And I'm like, if you didn't write the vision, then it's really hard to keep or hold to the vision. So we promote in our vision seminars and our goals seminars. So we usually do them together, vision building and goal writing seminars. We do them together. And the reason why is because when you see something, your goals transferred to picture is completely different. So when you see this vision board and you're like, okay, I have, just for example, if you're a teenager, usually teenagers, they're probably thinking about, whether you guys know it or not, teenagers are usually thinking about what they do. They are thinking about what they want to do in life. So when you actually, as a parent, sit down and say, hey, let's do this, activity together, a vision board, you're going to see what comes out of their heart. Because I promise you, they're going to find pictures in those magazines about things that you didn't even know that was on their heart. So for the parent and the child, it can be a great activity. So them having that vision, and so them having that vision board there, I always say, keep your vision board for at least a year. Keep it for a year, and then that vision board can remind you of what it is that you set out to do at the beginning of the year. So if you walk by that vision board and you see that, hey, you're a little off on this goal, then that's going to quicken you to say, okay, what do I need to do to get back on track? Because most people are visionaries. Like they vision it first.
Yeah.
So
it makes it real, and you have that emotional connection. So, no doubt about it. So also what's cool is an added bonus for us having you on the podcast, because you're telling us ways to serve teens, but your organization serves parents. You all take that holistic approach. And especially in terms of single parents, what are some other things that you offer them to help break that cycle of poverty and that poverty mindset?
So what I found with single parents is life happens just with anybody. But sometimes with a single parent, and let me just say this, I have had seminars that were meant for single parents, but I have had married couples come in as well. So I'm going to say, because life happens to everybody.
Yeah,
but
doesn't discriminate.
It does not discriminate at all. It could be a situation of you set out to do one thing, but life threw you something different. And so one of the things that I have found with parents, single parents, married couples, teenagers, whomever, is how they're able to bounce back after that setback happens. And so one of the
resiliency.
Right, resiliency. One of the most important things that I stress to them is, regardless of what has happened, how it happened, bounce back. Like, just, sit down, regroup. Okay, this is where I'm at. This is what I thought was going to happen. This is what did not happen, but this is what I want to happen. Because the moment that you get your eyes off of what the goal is in your life, your personal life, or what you set out to do, that's the moment where you delay success. And so, that's one of the key things that I tell them. Like I said, especially with single parents, because being a single parent myself, I can honestly say that there are times, and a lot of times they'll say to me, they're like, oh, you're so goal oriented. And, they just say all of these different things. But I'm like, you just do not know. Like, I have to coach myself too. Through these things, because like I say, life can happen. Things can happen. Life can happen. And like I said, a lot of times with single parents, they feel like they get stuck in a hole or they get stuck in a tunnel. And I'm not characterizing all single parents at all. But I'm just saying that I have seen it happen to several, where something happens, maybe they get pregnant with a second child, or they lose a job, or, they don't have their GED, but, they're aspiring to get their GED. And so one of the things I tell them is, write it down. I don't care what you do. Even if you just write it on a little notepad, like, write it down and let's go step by step. When I mentor, we do step by step. We do goals every month, because the goals every month is going to lead up to your yearly goal.
Okay.
And like I said, I'm a big proponent of that. If you know me, in my planner, I'm a sticky note girl. So I write sticky notes and I'll put, things to do this month. Just something simple. It's not complicated. Let me also stress that what I'm talking about is not a complicated process at all. It's just a matter of literally maybe every week you sit down for 10 minutes and say, hey, what do I want to accomplish this? And I guarantee you, by the time you get to the end of the month, if you've checked off those things that you wanted to accomplish by the end of the week, you've already knocked off a couple of goals for your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Then that boosts your confidence and energizes you as well.
Confidence.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, parents, I totally agree. As you say, it doesn't have to be complicated, not complicated at all. And it's best to simplify things. Just keep it
It's
simple
best.
and track it. Track your
And check it. I
progress.
just told you guys that I do mine on a stick. I have a planner too. Yes, I do. But like I said, I'm a sticky note girl. So I'll just do sticky notes. I think one of the the most awesome things that I've seen is my 13-year-old has a planner, and so she uses the planner. At the end of the night, I see
Wow.
her sitting in there, and she's with her planner, and she's like, "Okay, is this what I did at school?" And because she has extracurricular activities as well. And even for me, I mean, and granted, like I said, she's not perfect sometimes, but for me seeing that, I'm like, okay, she's getting it.
Yeah,
She's getting it, because sometimes we'll get into a rut, and I will wholeheartly say that I have been there, where we will
I have
get
too.
right into a
Yeah.
rut, and you're like, you know what? I'm not doing nothing. I'm not doing nothing today towards anything. But the most important key thing is, I say you can rest. Take your days where you just don't want to do anything. You don't want to do anything towards goal. You don't want to do anything towards purpose. It is okay to take your days, but
Yes.
bounce back after.
Can have a permanent vacation, but
Just please don't have a permanent vacation with it, because what's going to happen is you're going to go back into 2021 and you're going to say, hey, those same things that were on your goal list for 2020 are still there.
absolutely. I certainly can't let you go without finding out more in terms of heard rumors that you do mission trips. More about that. That's
I
fascinating.
do. So I do mission trips, and missions. As much as I love Hope Alarms, as much as I love the people, missions is my heart. I've always had a heart to help people. I've always had a heart to help those who are in need, because, like I said, I was a little, I remember being in Egypt, and I have a line of journals, and I wrote this at the beginning of my line of journal, but I remember being in Egypt, and I looked around, I was sitting in this village, and I was like, and I'm going to say it, like, how did a little black country girl get all the way over here? Like, I think that for me, that was like one of the most proudest moments, because
Yeah.
I do go places. I'll be in Cuba, where I just saw that they had the earthquake today. So I hope I'll be in Cuba in April. But yeah, we go wherever.
And I guess can give people, listeners, a little more insight. What is a mission trip? We have an idea of the concept, but I'm sure most people have never been on one. So I'm sure
I've never been on one.
It's not just a vacation.
No, I have this running joke where I tell people, like, if you're on vacation on a mission trip, you're not on a real mission trip.
Right.
Missions is when usually missions are, when people think about missions, it's international, right? But basically, missions is where you go for a specific purpose. You go, usually we partner with other organizations that are in the country or in the state, and it's what we just come alongside them and help them, basically. So like I said, if you're on vacation, it's not a mission. I've been on some mission trips where it has been rough.
I can imagine.
It has been so rough. And I actually just found out, if I can say this, that I was at a mission team meeting for Cuba, and the lady said, hey, we may not have internet, so you guys probably won't be able to use your phones. And I was like, oh my God. Like,
Be off the grid.
off the grid for like 6 days. And I'm like, oh my, but I have a heart, and I do truly believe that is one of the callings that God has placed on my life, is to be a missionary, to do missions. And so I've done missions in the States, and I've done missions internationally. And my key objective is to go and be light and love to whomever the person is. Because you always meet people. So whomever the people that I come into contact with, that is
Right.
that is my mission.
That is awesome. Certainly need more people like yourself. Now, going back to Hopeful Arms, just give us kind of some insight into like how many youth are actually homeless. I found this out recently, even within Dallas Fort Worth. Like, it's a huge problem as far as the people that are homeless, and especially even kids.
Yeah, so I mean, and I don't have the statistics right now, but I can only go off of me seeing them. So there's a nonprofit and a ministry that we work with in the Dallas area where it's an amazing lady, Miss Alfreda Blakely. She has been feeding the homeless every third Saturday for about 15 years. And so a couple of years ago, I started coming alongside of her and, just helping. We bring volunteers out. We do, we call them blessing bags, which are toiletries, just items that literally we use every day. And so from those experiences, I can honestly tell you that if there's a family that's homeless, that means that the children are homeless too. I know that there's this stigma of sometimes when you see a homeless person, you're probably like, oh, well, they can just go and get a job. But I love to hear people's stories.
Mm-hmm.
I love to, and I talk to them. I don't just go out there like I'm talking to them. And so I've heard so many different stories of how they ended up there. And I always like to say, hey, a lot of us are probably a check away from being there as well.
Big time,
in regards to the youth, a lot of times if there is a family who is homeless and they have youth, sometimes shelters, because I do work with shelters a lot, so sometimes shelters are a little bit more prone to allow them to come in. But the thing about it is with shelters, there's a capacity.
Right.
So one of the things I do want to stress in regards to people who are homeless and for whomever that is hearing me, just be a little bit more compassionate. Just a little bit more compassionate, because I promise you, some of these people who are out here and that are on the streets, if they had it another way, they would not be. They wouldn't be. And some of them, they've been there so long that that's all that they know.
Yeah.
And in regards to children, some of the children, the families, they try to keep a steady life for their children. So the children may go to school. So just imagine, your family, you're living in your car, but you're a parent and you're like, okay, I still want my child to go to school, because you still have that inside of you that, hey, I want my child to do better. And so I've seen that with so many. I've seen women who are pregnant, who are on the street, I just want to stress compassion.
Yeah, compassion is very important.
Compassion, yes.
That's something I experienced firsthand. When I was 11, we were homeless. I was going to school from a homeless shelter, and we did live in our van. So something
right.
certainly
See, so
I can relate to firsthand.
Yeah, so like, and even myself, when it was me and my daughter, like I said, we're in the car, and I still made sure her life stayed the same. I didn't want her to be affected.
Right.
I didn't want her. And so a lot of parents, they have the same mentality. So I would just say compassion. I love to ask the question, even if I'm just going through a Whataburger, just something, if I'm just going through and I see somebody that's walking, because I can kind of tell like who may be, homeless or not. Even just compassionate, just that, hey, when you go through the line and get something, just go and get something extra. And if the person wants to take it, great. And if they don't, fine. Because like I say, some people, they may not eat for the day. I know a lot of nonprofits, they usually focus towards the weekend when they go out and feed. So we have to think about those other days of the week. How are these people eating? Because if they're going to like a soup kitchen or something, everybody can't get in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly something to think about. Well, Demira, as we get ready to wrap up this interview, I'd like to close with kind of a two-pronged question, just to make sure we have a key takeaway for the parents. You give us a lot of valuable, just practical tips and insight. Well, in terms of what you see that's working from a parenting standpoint, as far as preparing teens to be successful adults, what's something come to mind that you see, okay, this is really working?
As a parent, something that's practical. I think the most practical thing that you can do as a parent would be to listen. And when I say listen, I mean listen as in don't listen to have an answer to your child, but listen to them. I know that my daughter runs home every day and she's like, Mom, this is what happened. And literally it can go on for like an hour. But sometimes as parents, we are so bogged down by work, whatever else we have to do, whatever the extracurricular activities that the children have to do, we're just trying to get dinner. It's like we're so bogged down with all these other things. But in the evening time, when the child is just getting home, I would say the most practical thing to do would be to listen, take interest in what they're taking interest in. I know that we're in an age where technology it runs rampant, but I have days where my daughter doesn't use her phone, where she doesn't get on YouTube. And I think that, and where she does just sit and read, or we'll sit and read together, or we'll just sit and talk, because she understands that, hey, mom is actually paying attention to me.
Right.
So a lot of times children, especially teenagers, this middle school age was completely different from me. Like, I had to step my game up from elementary to middle school.
It's a new era.
It was a new era. And so I will say this to those parents: do not dismiss any little thing. I promise you, like, don't dismiss any little thing. Take heed to what they're telling you, what they tell you with their actions, what they say to you without saying it, and that will cause you to actually pay attention to them. And I completely understand that parents are super busy, but just take that moment. One of the practical things that I tell my parents who are in shelters, especially those that have more than one child, I say every night, take about 20 to 30 minutes per child. Give every child your undivided attention, however many you got.
Yeah.
Now, it may take a minute. You may have to break it up, but still, you have that one-on-one attention with that child, because I promise you, you're going to see that it's going to start making such a big difference in their life, just having that time.
Yeah, those are some great practical tips. And certainly a recurring theme that I'm hearing from a lot of people I interview. It must be true. It's effective. It's important. It's vital.
It is, because like I say, a lot of times we're allowing the internet to raise our kids.
So many distractions. Yeah, exactly.
That ain't good for nobody.
It's a lose-lose for everybody. Yes, indeed. Well, Demira, can't thank you enough for your time and just sharing your experience and wisdom. I know I have a page full of notes, and I'm sure the listeners are going to get just as much value. But before we get ready to let you go, what's the best way to contact you? The
best way that you can contact me is you can send me an email at, you can go to my website. The website is www.hopefularmsfoundation.org. Or you can email me any questions. I am open. You can email me any question. You can say, hey, I heard it on the podcast. I have more questions about this. I'm always open to helping anyone. And so my email address is info, I-N-F-O, at hopefularmsfoundation.org. You can also find us on Instagram at Hopeful Arms Foundation. And we are also on Facebook at Hopeful Arms Foundation.
Fantastic.
Yes. Or you can just find my personal, and that'll get you to everyone. And my personal is Demira Devoil. So.
All right. For any of the listeners out there who want to donate to your cause, what would be the best place to do that? Would be the website?
The best place will be, our website. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, Demira, thanks again, and really appreciate it. And like I say, we're looking forward to calling you Dr. Devoil.
Oh, yes.
Working towards that amazing goal. Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was an incredible interview with Demira Devoil. She gave us a lot of great strategies, tips, and resources to help you parents prepare your teens to be successful adults. Some things I want to recap on. One of the great tips that Demira shared was to expose your teens to budgeting and financial literacy by letting them see the bills and what you budgeted for those bills, and sharing with them your credit score and just things to do to improve credit scores and what decreases credit scores. Talk to them about credit cards. All these things helps prepares them for when they do leave the nest and go out on their own. You want to make sure that they have that level of financial literacy to be fiscally responsible. Also, Demira talked a lot about vision boards and goal setting, and actually having your teens write out their goals and action plans to accomplish those goals is extremely important. And then with the vision board, actually having them create a vision board and seeing those images of their goals and really harnessing the emotions that they'll feel once they accomplish those goals is very powerful, extremely valuable skill set to have. Goal planning. Last but not least, you notice a reoccurring theme from previous interviews. Demira mentioned as far as if you have multiple kids, making sure you're spending quality time with each child individually, giving them that time with you one-on-one. That's extremely important. Also being able to fully be present when your child is speaking to you, paying attention to their body language, things they're saying, no matter how small, because it keeps you abreast of what's going on in their lives and lets them know that they have a voice and you respect them and you will always listen to them. So you can't put a price on that. Well, I hope that you join us next week. Of course, we're going to have another guest mentor sharing their expertise with us on how you can prepare your teens to be successful adults. Until next week, remember, it takes a village to raise a teen.
You've been listening to Mentor Select. Mentor Select. Parenting teens to be successful adults. Hosted by Derrich Phillips. Raising teenagers is hard. Understatement of the century. We get it. That's why Derrich interviews leading experts that work with teens, educators, counselors, mentors, and authors to give you practical tips, strategies, and resources that you can incorporate immediately to better connect and understand your teen. That's why we do the show. Be sure to share Mentor Select with other parents of teens. Follow us on social media at Mentor Select to stay up to date on the latest tips, strategies, and resources for parenting teens. Send your questions and comments to Derrich@mentorselect.com. Tune in every Wednesday for new episodes. Till next time, this is Mentor Select.